Hey all, Brian here. So going to do chapter 11 of Warrior Priest of Dmon-li, book 3 of the Morcyth Saga. So right now James, Jiron, and Miko are in the camp of the Windrider Clan. There's a gathering of clans there. They meet every year to assemble the tribute of horses and gold for the Empire. And their fate will be decided at the council as to whether they'll be killed outright or allowed to live and continue. And it would appear that the warrior priest, of which the book is named, has made an appearance. He arrived with the Grey Wolf clan, apparently the dark side of the clans. Clans being the like nomadic Genghis Khan, kind of like part Genghis Khan, part American Indian, that sort of thing. Anyway, here's chapter 11. At the end of chapter 10, Theron, the sub-chief and son of the leader of the Windrider Clan, has came and got him to take him to the council. So, chapter 11 begins with him coming to the council to have his fate decided. Theron took him to the large tent at the center of the Windrider camp. Many warriors from different clans congregated outside. James could tell the different factions of the clans by who stood near whom. As they approached, two Windrider clansmen standing guard at the tent flaps each took hold of a side and swung them open. Theron preceded him through the opening. Many braziers burned throughout the tent, giving light to the proceedings. The 10 members of the council sat in a semicircle on the ground. A fire burned within a ring of stones before them. His eyes widened slightly when he felt a prickling sensation. The warrior priest sat next to the chief of the Grey Wolf clan. "Let him approach," Theron's father said. Theron gestured for him to follow, and they walked forward until they stood before the assembled chiefs. Theron gave the council a bow, so he followed suit. "May I present James, the bearer of the Lake Lady's token," Theron announced. Turning to James, he said, "Show them the token." James opened his pouch and held up the token. He showed it first to the chief on the right, then slowly moved it around to the chief on the left, so all were able to clearly see it. "How do we know this came from the lady?" asked the Grey Wolf chief. "Tell them," Theron said to James. James related how they had been camped on the shore and the manner in which she came to them, how she had brought them to her home and fed them. Then he spoke of finding the token the next morning. Once he concluded how he had come to be in possession of it, Theron took the token from him and handed it to his father. After examining it, he handed it to the chief sitting next to him. As it passed from one chief to the next, James waited. The eyes of the warrior priest never left him, and he could feel nothing but malice coming from him. Twice, he felt the prickling sensation increase momentarily as the warrior priest engaged in magic, but he was unable to discern what he did. When the chiefs finished their examination of the token, Theron's father asked, "Is there still any who doubts that this came from the lady?" The assembled chiefs shook their heads and voiced their agreement that it did indeed come from the lady. The Grey Wolf chief seemed about ready to deny it, but with all in opposition, he conceded. "So now, what do we do with him and his companions?" the Windrider chief asked. One second. Gesturing to the warrior priest, he said, "Abulamazki, warrior priest of Dmon-li, has laid claim to them." Standing up, the warrior priest said, "They are criminals of the empire. They laid waste to cities and have killed hundreds of its citizens. They have moved through the empire like a plague, killing and destroying wherever they went. In the name of justice, I demand them." They turned to James, who began to sweat. What the warrior priest said was basically true, just not exactly in that context. He was about to say something when Theron addressed the council. "But would the lady have given men such as he described her token?" He looked around at the assembled chiefs. "We know her to be good and kind, a friend in need who has never harmed a soul. It does not stand to reason that she would do such a thing as give her token to such a defiler of all she held dear." James was relieved to see more than one of the chiefs nod at his words. Then Abula-Maski said, "They belong by rights to the Empire for all that they've done. You cannot deny the Empire in this." He glared defiantly at the assembled chiefs as if daring any to oppose him. Theron's father stood and turned to face him. "According to the treaty our forefathers signed with the Empire, we can." Face to face now with the burning intensity of the warrior priest, anger, he continued, "As long as it is in effect, the laws stated therein still hold true. In exchange for the tribute and a cease of hostilities, the Empire will leave us alone. Our laws govern here, not the Empire's." He gave Abula-Maski a look of command as he said, "Until at such time either side breaks the treaty." Abula-Maski stared him down, never once blinking or glancing away. The chief of the Sunset Hills came to his feet and stood between them. "Enough! We're not here to fight amongst ourselves, but decide what to do with the Outlander." Pointing to James, he continued, "It first must be decided if he and his friends are to be allowed within the gathering without penalty of death." Both Abula-Maski and Theron's father looked away at the same time as several of the other chiefs spoke out in agreement with the chief of the Sunset Hills. Resuming his seat, Theron's father said, "So be it. Who believes they should be granted safe travel?" Six chiefs raised their hands. "And who believes the token means nothing and they should either be executed or given over to Abula-Maski?" 4 hands went up. "So be it." Theron's father turned to Abula-Maski. "It has been decided. They are to be granted safe passage through our lands." Okay, so looks like they're okay right now, right? And the warrior priest is spitting mad, I'm sure. Burning with anger, Abula-Maski's eyes practically sparked. "So, I am to be denied?" he cried out to the assembled chiefs. His anger and rage rolled over them like a red tide. "As long as they are in our territory," Theron's father said, "yes, you are." When he saw how dark his anger was, he added, "As a representative of the Empire, should you cause harm to them in our territory while under our protection, you will break the centuries-long peace between us." Abula-Maski turned and gave James a look of naked hatred and anger before stalking out. The air practically sizzled with his rage. Theron's father turned to James. "You are granted safe contact within our lands, and none here will gainsay that. It is the will of the council." "I understand," James said, "and thank you." Theron gave the council another bow, and again James followed suit. He then turned for the exit, and James followed as he left the council tent. "It might be wise for you to leave in the morning," Theron said. Will we be safe here until then?" James asked. "Yes," Theron replied. "He dares not violate the treaty." Sighing, he continued, "I really didn't think they would go against him. I'm surprised so many voted in your favor." "Why?" "Even though you bear the token of the lady," he explained, "we really dare not anger the Empire. Their might is far too strong. But many saw this as a chance to strike out at the Empire, even in so small a way." "Your people don't care for the Empire?" Shaking his head, he said, "No. The tribute takes too many of our horses and goods each year. We are honorable people, at least most of us are, and so we abide by it. Maybe someday you can be free of them." "It would be a good thing for our people," he agreed, "but until that day comes, we must do what honor dictates." They came to James's tent and entered. He stopped suddenly when he saw only Jiron sitting on the floor. Jiron looked up as he entered and asked, "Isn't Miko with you?" Worry came over James as he replied, "No, he isn't." With confusion on his face, Jiron said, "2 warriors came and said that the council had requested his presence, so he went with them." "The council made no such request," Theron told him. "Then who came and took him?" James asked. Anger suddenly blossomed upon Theron's face as he replied, "The Grey Wolf clan, no doubt." He spat on the floor as he began pacing. "Since they can't move against you or it would violate the pact, they've arranged for you to move against them." You mean they've taken Miko to cause us to go after him and break the pact? James asked. And thus, we'd be given to that warrior priest? It would seem so. Damn, cursed James. Are we going to tell the council? Jiron asked. Tell them what? He replied. We have no proof other than your word, which will not be believed over that of one of us. You can be certain that the Grey Wolf clan will deny any involvement in this. What are we to do? James asked. You must get him. But they'll be expecting that, Jiron added. True, agreed Theron. But what choice do you have? He paused a moment before adding, if you ever wish to again see him alive. Jiron came to James and said, if we can escape from Azek with the entire city roused against us, we should be able to manage getting Miko out of here. Then what he said was true? Theron asked. About you destroying and killing in the Empire? We only fought those who attacked us, James explained. We never initiated any fights, only defended ourselves. Nodding, Theron said, wait here a moment. He turned and left the tent. Wonder what that was about, Jiron asked. Don't know, but we can wait at least a couple more minutes longer, James replied. After only a few moments, Theron returned with 2 sets of cloaks bearing the design of the Grey Wolf clan. Here, he said, handing them the cloaks. These should enable you to get close to where they are holding your friend. More I dare not do. Taking the cloaks, James said thank you. He handed Jiron one as he donned the other. Theron opened the tent flap and peered out, making sure no one was nearby. He waved them to follow as he stepped through the opening. Follow me, he whispered. I'll lead you to the tents of the Grey Wolf clan. From there, you will be on your own. I understand, James assured him. They followed him quietly through the Windrider camp. Warriors recognized Theron and called out greetings. He merely gave them a short reply as he hurried along. He meandered through many tents until coming to a clear area separating the Windriders and the Grey Wolf clan's camps. Stopping, he turned to them and whispered, I must leave you here. I cannot take the chance of violating the pact, though in spirit I suppose I have already done so. We thank you for all you have done, James said as he shook his hand. Just bringing the plans of the Grey Wolf clan to ruins is thanks enough, he said as he slipped away back within the camp. They paused within the shadows as they figured out what to do. A large tent sat within the middle of the camp and was the most likely place to find Miko. Between them and the main tent were rows of smaller tents with many Grey Wolf clan warriors milling around the numerous campfires. James couldn't see any way to make it through without coming into close contact with someone. What do you plan? I may have an idea, he said, after taking a moment to think. Give me a moment to work it out. Jiron nodded as he kept watch on the camp and the tent where they believed Miko to be held. Suddenly, there appeared 2 nearly invisible, translucent bubbles floating before them. James likes his bubbles, don't they? I've noticed that. He really does. Are you crazy? He asked James. The warrior priest is going to know where we are. Exactly, he replied. The bubbles floated away, each moving around the perimeter of the camp in opposite direction of the other. Whispering quietly, he explained, right now, they are not using much magic, so I doubt he will take notice. But as they move farther away from us, they will draw a small amount of magic from those they pass. Soon, they should be emitting enough of a magical resonance for that warrior priest to realize something is going on and investigate. Jiron grinned in the moonlight. And then the fun will begin. I hope so. James grinned in the moonlight. And then the fun will begin. I hope so, Jiron replied. Whichever tent he comes out of, you can bet that will be the one Miko was in. 10 minutes passed before they saw the flap to the large tent open and Abulamaski exited. He moved quickly toward the area where one of the bubbles should be. When James felt the prickling of magic, he said, any second now, Zzz! A flash of lightning shot toward Abulamaski out of the night and exploded upon an invisible protective shield. The Grey Wolf camp erupted in a frenzy of activity as clansmen cried out and grabbed their weapons. The warriors raced toward the area where the lightning had originated. Soon, the area between them and the tent was relatively clear. Let's go, James said, allowing Jiron to take the lead. They ran, blending in with the others running about as they made their way toward the tent. Zip! Hang on. Another lightning bolt sizzled as it struck the shield encompassing Abulamaski. Then suddenly a loud explosion as the bubble erupted into a fireball blazing into the night. They heard cries of warriors who had the misfortune to be caught within the blast radius. "He'll be coming back," Jiron whispered to James. "Not necessarily," he said. "Remember, there were 2 bubbles." Right. They reached a tent adjacent to the one they were after and paused as they saw Abulamaski returning to the tent. The expression... Oh, hang on. The expression on his face was one of obvious anger. From the far side of the camp, the other bubble began emitting invisible bursts of magic, which did nothing other than create a magical signature. James felt a prickling as each of the bursts happened. Looking at Abulamaski, it was clear that he felt them too. The warrior priest called out commands as he and the warriors near him ran toward where the bursts originated. Once they were past, Jiron crossed to the back of the tent and with a quick swipe from his knife, opened a long slit. He stepped through the opening and dove to the side when he detected movement out of the corner of his eye. The sword of the guard hang on, I just didn't flow right. The sword of a guard stationed within the tent passed mere inches from where Jiron had recently stood. Rolling quickly, he came to his feet with both knives at the ready. The guard called to those outside, but with all the commotion going on, his words were lost in the chaos. Jiron moved to engage him and attempted to draw him away from the opening so James could enter. James poked his head through and saw them battling a few feet away. Passing through, he moved away from Jiron and the guard, staying near the side of the tent. Tied to the central pole of the tent, Miko sat with his hands secured behind him. Coming over, James took out his knife and cut the bonds. "Thank the gods you're here," Miko said as he got up off the floor. "Never mind that now," James told him. "We've got to get out of here." He looked over to where Jiron and the guard fought. Neither one seemed to be able to get the advantage over the other. Jiron easily deflected the blows of the guard, but so far had been unable to successfully counterattack. James saw his difficulty and picked up a stool and tossed it behind the guard, causing him to trip. Off balance, the guard fell. Jiron took advantage and sank several inches of knife into the man's thigh. Leaving the blade there, Jiron fell upon the man and wrestled him for the sword. The man punched and connected with Jiron's jaw, snapping his head back. Jiron used his knee and caught him in the groin, producing a painful gasp. Michael came over and kicked the guard in the side of the head, leaving him dazed. Jiron then had little trouble in taking the sword away, and with his remaining knife, silenced him. He retrieved his other knife from the man's thigh and wiped them both clean on the dead man's tunic. Seeing James had already freed Miko, he moved to the opening in the side of the tent, just as the night lit up with a loud explosion as the remaining bubble detonated. "That's it," James said. "They will be back soon." He tossed a Grey Wolf Clan tunic found in the tent to Miko as it would help him blend in. Hang on. So Miko, as it would help him blend in. "Then let's not wait around here for them to return," Jiron said as he opened the slit and made his way out of the tent. He waited a moment, scanning the area as the others exited. Then they moved in the opposite direction from that last explosion. Running as fast as they could, they raced past tent after tent until reaching the edge of the Grey Wolf Clan's camp. Warriors ran around like ants whose anthill had just been poked with a stick. James grinned at the analogy. I suppose it had. Finding that they were now on the outskirts of the entire gathering, they found a wide open area between the edge of the tents and where the trees began. Running fast, they covered the distance before anyone took notice of them. Jiron again took the lead as they made their way toward the northern ridge. The camp behind them was in total chaos. Warriors swarmed the area and several horns blared. Other areas of the gathering were in an uproar as well after the 2 large explosions in the Grey Wolf Clan's area. "They're not going to let us just walk out of here," Jiron said. "We have violated the pact, and I'm sure the protection of the Windriders will be withdrawn shortly if it hasn't already." "Then let's hurry and reach the northern passage out of here before they begin a serious search for us," James suggested. Angling as directly to the northern pass as they could, they broke into a run toward the ridge. Suddenly, out of the trees ahead of them appeared a group of horses. Jerome's knives jumped to his hand, and James ready to spell before they realized that it was Theron with several other Windriders. Theron had a big smile on his face as he approached them. "I can see now why they want you so badly." He signaled a rider who brought over 3 horses. "Take these and fly swift." James mounted. As James mounted, he said, he asked, "Aren't you running the risk of violating the pact?" "Probably," he said, "but that is my concern. And don't worry about the horses leading the trail back to us. We stole these from the Grey Wolf clan." At that, a couple of other riders broke out laughing. When they were mounted, James said, "Thanks again." "You're welcome," he replied, "though you may not want to come this way ever again." "I understand," James said, as he turned his horse toward the north. "Good luck," Theron said, "and ride fast." They kicked their horses and rode for the northern passage through the mountains. Jiron again took the lead as they left Theron and the other riders behind. "Think he'll get into trouble?" Miko asked. "I hope not," James replied. "But like he said, I don't think we should ever come this way again." As they progressed toward the pass, they saw a large group of riders following behind. James felt the prickling of magic, telling him Abulamaski was among them. "It didn't take them long to determine where we're going." "You probably did the same trick to find you that you used to find Miko," Jiron explained. "You're probably right. We'll never lose them as long as he's behind us," Jiron said. "I know," James replied. "I'm working on that." The terrain suddenly rose steeply as they neared the upper reaches of the pass. They found themselves between 2 tall ridges. The pass was wide enough to accommodate several horses side by side, and they continued racing through to the other side. The full moon above gave them ample light with which to see. Halfway through, James brought his horse to a sudden halt and quickly dismounted. Jiron quickly realized he was not with them. I got one too many quicklies there. Jiron quickly realized he was not with them and glanced back. When he saw him on foot, he stopped and turned his horse around. Moving back to join his friend, he asked, "What's wrong?" James glanced up to him and replied, "Just trying to slow the pursuit." Jiron watched the pass behind them as James did his thing. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a series of glowing circular spots flash briefly upon the hillside to either side. They extended at least 30 feet up, and after the last one flashed, James slumped to the ground. He dismounted and helped James get up on his horse, tying him in place. "Haven't much time," he heard James say, once he had him secured to the saddle. Nodding, he mounted and they raced to where Miko waited at the far end of the pass. James looked back and saw riders in the moonlight. Abulamaski was in the lead and riding hard to catch them. Crumph! When the riders were less than 20 yards from where James had worked the magic, the sides of the pass exploded outward, causing the ridges on both sides to collapse. Gigantic sections of the ridge fell and crushed the leading edge of the pursuing riders, Abulamaski among them. Cries from horses and men emerged from out of the ensuing mammoth dust cloud. Jiron paused momentarily, waiting for the dust to clear. When it did, the pass was now completely blocked by a pile of rubble, several hundred feet high. Even though he had witnessed the effect of James' magic many times, it still amazed him. They caught up with Miko, who waited for them at the far end of the pass. They continued down the trail and began the descent down the other side of the ridge. "Think that will stop them?" Miko asked. "If it doesn't, then that warrior priest is more powerful than anything I can imagine," Jiron replied. "Good," said Miko. They slowed their pace a little to save the horses and traveled for several more hours before finding a spot to make camp. Miko and Jiron took turns at watch since James had passed into unconsciousness as soon as he laid down. Worried about pursuit, they kept the horses saddled, and the one who was on watch kept extra alert during their vigil. And that ends chapter 11. So yeah, that was fun. So the first sort of battle between James and Abulamaski. So James likes bubbles. I really don't have a good explanation of that, but bubbles float, and in his mind, he wants something to move, and so a bubble kind of floats and moves. I think that's kind of where the bubble comes from. There's nothing in my past Dungeons and Dragons dungeon mastering that did that. So not really sure where that came from, but that it's there now. So that's the Windriders, and I don't think a Bulamaski's dead. You know, I just don't think so. I mean, the book's called Warrior Priest of Dmon-li. He's not going to die in like the second chapter that he's in, right? Well, anyway, that's chapter 11. We'll get to chapter 12, I'm hoping, tomorrow. And I'm going to get this uploaded in a minute. And I'm going to bed. I'm getting tired. Y'all take care. You have a good night.